Another year, another Call of Duty game. My relationship with this franchise is a love-hate one. Since the first game, I've loved both the single and the multiplayer, but somewhere along the way came Battlefield 3 and made the Call of Duty franchise multiplayer feel and look like a kindergarten to me. It wasn't just the player base, but also the gameplay mechanics that simply were not that fun for me anymore. The one thing that never stopped being awesome, however, were the single-player campaigns. Both Treyarch and Infinity Ward have always done an excellent job when it came to telling a good story. Even Infinite Warfare was good in my eyes. The one thing that I'm tired of, however, is the World War II setting. I just find it almost boring when it is approached in a serious and realistic way. It's been chewed up so much, I really was unsure about what to expect here. Not because the game would be bad, but because I have this bias now. Battlefield 1 is a great example of a setting which simply does not work for me either. I've always liked the distant past, such as medieval times, I like modern times, and I enjoy the distant future, but the world wars are exactly the time period which I personally do not find so interesting, as I've mentioned, if approached in a historic or realistic, serious way. Now that we got that out of the way, I'm ready to review Call of Duty World War II. As always, the negative aspects come first. Not long after the game starts, you will notice that the QuickTime events are back in their full glory. You've got everything from pressing buttons when told, to moving the mouse towards a special area of the screen and then pressing the button which appears. And of course, let's not forget the worst offender of them all, the button masher. I own a mechanical keyboard, so I know that it will take a lot more to mess up a button on it, but I still hate the idea of having to mash the button like crazy. Not to mention how much it annoys me when I play on a console. Those gamepads can't handle nearly as much abuse as a good keyboard can. I understand that QTEs are an effective way of giving the player a feeling that the cutscenes are part of the game, but let's agree that at least the ones which require us to mash a button like crazy need to go. Another thing they need to work on is the feeling of being on rails the whole time. If you are going to place the player in a seemingly open map, such as a city or a field, something that is not limited like a room, you should give them some freedom. The game is just one tube level after another. Only the stealth sections have some minimal freedom, but that freedom is also very limited. Why not open the maps up a bit and give the player an incentive to actually want to go where he or she is supposed to, instead of giving them a message that they need to return to the battlefield or place visible and invisible walls around them. The game is designed to feel like an interactive movie, lots of cutscenes, lots of conversations. I really like that, but they should have made it so that the conversations in-game are skippable. A good example are the stealth missions. As soon as you get spotted, you are saved and cannot reload to a checkpoint before the moment you got spotted. The only option to attempt to pass the mission without breaking stealth is by doing it in one run, so you might have to restart the whole mission several times. This would be okay if you didn't have to listen to everyone talk to each other before you can actually start playing the mission again. When you think of the Second World War, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Exactly, Nazis. And what do Nazis speak? German. So if you're going to make a game about the Second World War, I want to see lots of Nazis and hear them speak proper German. One of the things that bothers me a lot is hearing the Nazis in World War II games speak weird or even broken German. It's unforgivable really, and sadly we see it here as well. The weird thing is that I see it a lot more often happen with single characters. Most of the Nazis will actually speak fluent German, and every now and then an important character will appear who is supposed to be German but speaks weird or broken German. That breaks the immersion for me, and I wonder why they didn't just recruit a proper German national to do the job. It's a AAA title, they have the funds for it. A particularly good example of such bad German language can be seen in the mission where you play as a French female spy who's supposed to meet a high-ranking German officer to give him some travel papers. You have a conversation with him in which he switches between weird German and excellent English a few times. Well, you know, excellent considering that he has an accent, but this is intended. It's easily avoided, and I really don't understand why these things keep happening. Just get a proper German guy, tell him to voice this, and he will speak normal fluent German rather than sounding like a foreign person trying to speak German as well as they can and then trying to speak English with a German accent, because it's not even a German person, so the accent is also fake. I don't see why they do this. They have the money to avoid it, and it's not that hard. they can do these recordings without even having to go to a place. They could record it in Germany and have the recording sent to them, which is often the case in such games. But okay, we see it here, so I'm gonna keep getting angry about it and hope that one day this will be a thing of the past. The Call of Duty games will often fall victim to the overuse of Deus Ex Machina. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's when an author places the protagonists of the story in a terrible, inescapable situation, and then suddenly something miraculous happens and the protagonists are saved. This happens a bit too often and kills the suspense. Once you have seen your characters survive against impossible odds several times, the next time you're facing these odds, you're not gonna hold your breath in suspense anymore. And unfortunately, this is exactly what happens in this game as well. The campaign features several sections where you drive vehicles, and while most of them are actually done quite well, there's that one mission where you get to drive a tank and it feels so weird and out of place. For some reason, the tank seems to want to turn on its own in the direction in which you are looking, so if you want to move forward while aiming left, you have to literally fight the tank in order to try to prevent it from turning left. This actually made the mission harder for me. The game has some really funny bugs in it. The worst part of them is that they break your immersion. Nothing reminds you that you're playing a game more than being in the middle of a gunfight and noticing that one of your squad mates is running in a place in the middle of the battlefield. Another great example are the ragdoll physics, which can make some dead characters look like they have come out of a ballet practice and want to show off their skills. All in all, these bugs will not break your game, but will definitely break your immersion. And this one's not so much a negative thing as it is a curious one. I've noticed that Battlefield 1's bayonet charge was copied here. It literally is the same as it is in Battlefield 1. The way you hold the rifle, the screaming, etc. And yes, I'm aware that there are only so many ways you can perform a bayonet charge, but in all fairness, it suddenly appears in Call of Duty after we saw it in Battlefield 1, and it looks exactly the same. I don't have a problem with this. In fact, I think that copying something good from your competitors is a good practice for us, the consumers, because games improve together in this way. I just find that there are many other things that could have been copied, which would have actually improved the game rather than this, which on its own is not that interesting to me. For example, the map design, that would have been an interesting thing to see. A bit more open, a bit more exploration, a bit more freedom. The game features something called heroic actions, which require you to help fellow soldiers in need. These are boring and can be really stupid at times. A great example was a soldier who was wounded and screaming for help. Literally next to him was another one of our guys who simply ignored his pleas for help. So I had to go back, since I already had advanced too far ahead, and pull the injured fallen comrade behind cover, while the other guy simply ignored everything. I guess we aren't all heroes and not made for heroic actions. A particularly annoying thing was that after each level, the game would replace my weapons, even if the next level is literally a continuation of the previous one, without any breaks or anything like that. It's just there's a loading screen in between, and that's the reason why you lose the weapons you have picked up before that, and now you get some new ones. Of course, this always led to me having to search for the weapons at this point which I liked the most, so that I can use those again, and it was just simply annoying. I understand it if it would show me a different setting at different time, how it is actually in 99% of the cases, but in the 1% that I mentioned, it actually did happen that the mission continues on directly, and I suddenly have new weapons in my hands. One of the main problems with this title is that it has a very boring start. I know it's not easy to start a story, especially one with such an overused setting, but a flaw is a flaw and I'm here to mention it. It took about 4 to 5 missions for the game to actually start getting good. Before that, I actually played multiple times in short bursts since it failed to captivate me. Once the ball got rolling properly, however, I was stuck to my PC and I couldn't leave without seeing it through. But the start was rather slow. And with that said, let's move on to the positive part of the review. I mentioned that this franchise has not disappointed me when it came to storytelling, and in my book, a good story is the single most important factor for a game. A good story can remedy bad gameplay, bad graphics, bad voice acting. Make the story good enough and I will finish your game even if I hate every second of the gameplay. Luckily the game is pretty good here. There is variety, the weapons feel good and different enough for you to want to experiment and try multiple ones. However, the real meat of the game is still the story. And while it does take a while to start up properly, once it did I was hooked. The likable characters, the great voice acting and graphics didn't hurt either. I've also noticed that for the first time in a while we get to heal using medkits again, instead of having to take cover for a few seconds while our wounds fix themselves. To be honest, while it was idiotic, this never really disturbed me much, but I do appreciate the desire to try things differently this time. I also appreciate the fact that we get to play as a female character and she's portrayed in a very good and serious way. Usually this is where I would complain about the fact that the females are unattractive and get angry about the stupid wave of political correctness spreading through games and making female characters look like they're the children of the forbidden love between siblings. But in this setting, I'm actually willing to accept the appearance of the characters and accredit that to realism more than anything else. The males aren't particularly attractive either, and the whole setting feels more serious and historical rather than fantasy of some sort, so unattractive females fighting on the battleground seems like something more likely to me than hot babes with automatic weapons. I did mention that there are stealth missions, and while those are generally implemented relatively badly, they add to the atmosphere of the game and also generate appeal for me, since I do love stealth. So keep them coming. Overall, I have to say that the game is what you would expect of a Call of Duty game. Lots of action, a compelling story, very likable characters, a lot of over-the-top American patriotism, a lot more of the same really, more of the good and a lot of the bad. Still, even if you, like me, are someone who will just want this game for the single player, I still think that you will get a great experience out of it, although in those cases it might be better to borrow a friend's account because you could play through the game within a single day. At this point, I would like to thank you for watching and hope that my review was informative. I would love to hear your opinion in the comments section. Have a great day, and again, thanks for watching.